Hey Ringside crew, welcome to the internationally known Dudes at Ringside podcast. And now here's your host, Joe, Panther III.
Hello there, wrestling fans, who's my voice fans, because this is the internationally known Dudes at Ringside podcast. I am Joe Panther III, and we are in the middle of Tri-State Wrestling Month. If you just started watching this on this episode, this is my awesome guest today, Ace. Tri-State Wrestling Month is me. It used to be East Coast Wrestling Month, but I figured let me just give it to my Tri-State area. If you ever go into Port Jervis, New York, there's a rock that is at the end of the cemetery that is a tri-state rock that represents New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. And this month is all dedicated to that lovely rock, the Tri-State Wrestling Month. So I have a gentleman right now. Let's give a warm Dudes at Ringside welcome to Ace. Welcome to Dudes at Ringside, Ace. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor and blessing to be here. I'm glad to be here today.
Awesome. So if my internationally known audience, my fans from like the UK and across the pond over there, if they're not familiar with your Ace, introduce yourself.
All right. So my name is The Blaze Ace Christian, and I am a independent wrestler, upcoming independent star. Wrestle in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York mainly. Sometimes travel out to North Carolina. But yeah, just an upcoming star within the business and just going along the way through the journey of Ace Christian.
I love that shirt.
Thank you.
So welcome, Ace. So who trained you?
All right. So my trainer is my father. My father's name is Brian Phillips, aka Mr. Judgment. No one will probably know him, but yeah, he was a wrestler himself back in his day. He trained with John Rambo. I think that's
John Rambo.
Yeah, he trained with John Rambo. He trained in the same class as Luke Gallows.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so yeah, he trained back in that day. He stopped and then he got back into it. Whenever I was like growing up at a young age, I started training, legit training when I was 12, like in a ring. I was like about 12 whenever I started getting into the ring. And then I made my independent debut last year. No, not, yeah, 2023.
So since your dad is your coach, did you find it easier or harder to get like little tidbits within business?
So I will say I forgot to mention this. He's my main trainer, and then I have like two like co-trainers, Aaron Jones from North Carolina, and then Brenton Van Hansen in PA. But yeah, I will say Aaron and Van, they have both great minds within the business. So they helped me out with all that stuff, helping me get into wrestling, or not into wrestling, but you know what I mean, the independent scene.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Oh yeah. So whenever I made my first independent debut, like my first match, I met Van/Brendan Hansen at that show, and then ever since that show, me and him have talked, and then he became my trainer/reference.
So you mentioned John Rambo. Did you ever like ask him for advice? Because he's pretty much a legend in the business.
I have never spoken to him. I've never met him personally, but I've heard a lot of good things about him from not only other people but my dad as well. But yeah, I mean, everything that my dad taught me was pretty much from him.
I met Rambo. He's one of the he was not feeling well when I met him, but he was one of the sweetest people. Like, I got a chance to speak to the man on the phone like, because I was going to one of his events to benefit for him in Allentown, PA, and I was just like, I heard his voice. He said, "Hey, this is John Rambo," and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like I saw like the NWA old school footage in my head. I was like, "Oh my god!"
Mm-hmm.
You never get a chance to speak to a legend like that often. But let's go into your like first match. Did you have gear planned out and everything, or did you just go on the cuff and found some shorts and like a t-shirt?
So I had gear whenever I started, but I didn't have like my own custom set that I do now. Um, but yeah, so I had my own gear. Like my gear was baggy. It was like baggy, like not plastic, but it's like shiny shorts. Um, and then I had kick pads, knee pads, all that stuff, and then I had a arm sleeve that I still wear. But now I am still rocking shorts, but the shorts aren't like the shiny kind. It's just like kind of like regular mate. I think that's what it's called. Um, that, and then I'm also working on getting my own set of tights, my first pair of tights, and that yeah, those tights and the shorts that I was not the first pair that I wore, but the pair that I have now are both custom made.
Yeah. So before you went through that curtain for the first time, did you know this was for you, or were you still like going, I don't know?
So I've done a lot of practice matches before I did an independent match, specifically 5 years of practice matches.
Wow.
Yeah, it took a lot because I had to be just about 18 to start doing it professionally, to start doing professional wrestling or independent wrestling. But luckily, I was able to find something at West Virginia when I was 17. So I was able to make my first independent debut when I was 17.
Mm.
So don't get me wrong though, even though I like did a lot of entrances, not even though it wasn't really in front of a live crowd, um, it was still, I had that feeling, that nervous feeling because first independent match, or professional match, and I go out we didn't even the place that I wrestled at didn't even have a curtain. It was just the door.
Oh
But
wow.
yeah, uh, but yeah, I went out there and I just did my thing. Once I get out there, it's just everything leaves. It's just a whole nother world whenever you step out there in front of the crowd.
So, oh sorry, keep going.
No, 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 no. I was finished.
Where do you get your character from? Is it something you saw in a movie? Is it like something you just came up with on a whim? Where does it
So
come from?
my character, I've always been told to, as far as your character, to be yourself, but turn yourself up to like 1,000, like turn that notch up. And so that's what it is. Like this is basically me. Like you're seeing the real me,
Mm.
but like the extra notch to it is like when it like the journey is like a real thing. Um, and it sounds kind of cliche, but like whoa, whoa.
Uh-oh. It's so true. The camera fell.
No, but it's just my notifications being crazy. But um, back to what I was saying, the journey is like my actual journey to becoming a professional wrestler, like to making it big within the business. And I preach like the journey because you are now officially part of the journey because you have me on your podcast and I take all of my supporters with me and I feed off of my supporters because I like to use this saying, if there is no crowd, there is no me. So without the crowd, Ace Christian is nothing. So whenever I'm able to get the crowd involved and get the crowd hyped up and energetic and into the match, not only into the match, but invested into me, I feed off of that. And that makes me feel good about myself. Not only as a wrestler, but as a person, because they take time out of their day, take time out of their life to invest into me. But I didn't really have a quote unquote motivation or idol for my character. It was just something that I just thought about, and I wanted it to be something different. I mean, I don't know of anyone else that kind of builds their character or their wrestling style or their wrestling life around their journey or around their pathway to becoming a wrestler, becoming a big star, making it big within the business.
Now let's get into your training. Do you have a full schedule leading up to a show, or do you just plan accordingly like you normally do?
So can you repeat that again?
Oh, sorry. I
No,
said
you're
like
good.
it's when it comes to like the week of a wrestling show. Do you have to like plan accordingly to know what not to do so you don't mess yourself up and like give yourself a bump the wrong way?
Um, so as far as like prepping for a show, I mean, I go to the gym Monday through Thursday. So I mean, I obviously try not to hurt myself then, because that wouldn't be good. Luckily and thankfully, I've never been injured,
Mm.
within wrestling. But yeah, I mean, I train, within the gym. I, try to look decent for, show day. But I don't really be doing anything the day before, the day after a show. Those 2 days are kind of like my off days. Like, I also work a real job. So like Monday to Thursday, I go to the gym and then I go to work after the gym. And then Friday, I have off completely. I'll either be just hanging, like just relaxing or just doing something for the family. So like I take that day to relieve from work and relieve from the gym and then get myself ready for the show the next day. And then I have the show Saturday, typically on Saturday. And then Sunday is kind of like my decompressing day from the show. And then it gets my mind right for work/gym the next week.
So like as I said as before, I may be a local podcaster. I would say it's the local. I like to support my local businesses. So where would you say you and your family go after a show? Like, what is that local location you like to go?
So I typically, like after a show, well, I don't really go anywhere after a show. I mean, I'll just hit up like a McDonald's or something cheap, like Sheets. I go to Sheets a lot.
Sheets is awesome.
Yeah, Sheets is really good. But if I had to like uh, if I had to shout out a business, I'm not sure if it's just within our area or if it's globally, but BJ's Brew House, I like
I
that.
never heard of that place. No.
Yeah, BJ's is really good. It's not in Pennsylvania. It is in Maryland, but it's not like far from Maryland from where I'm at anyway.
Canceled. No, just kidding.
But yeah, that's the one place I know off the top of my head that I can shout out.
That's cool. Yeah, it's good. Even though I say local, but like if you had like a place that you go to that you know their burgers are really spot on and their service is really good. It's like giving people a little bit of a here you go. Your name's
Yeah,
on.
exactly.
Um so like is there any wrestlers out there that you've seen on the Instagrams or the Facebooks or the YouTubes that you want to wrestle that you haven't wrestled yet in the tri-state area or like where
Oh,
you're
okay,
from?
okay. Um, there's actually quite a few people that I've peeked my eye out a little bit. There was someone, I'm sure you know him since you watch PPW, but I have stepped in the ring with him before, but not one on one. And his name is Dan Stavko.
I don't yeah.
Yeah, I would like to step in the ring with him one on one. That goes along with oh shoot, I'm blanking. Uh, man, Hyena Hex. That's what I'm thinking
I
of.
never heard of that person.
He is in the New York/New Jersey area. But yeah, I stepped in the ring with him before, not one on one. So I'd like to mix it up with him. I'd like to mix it up with Samuel Thompson again.
Mm.
Who else can I peep out.
Also,
Go ahead.
Visage, maybe.
Who's that?
Visage. He's married to Danny Moe.
Okay, never heard of him, but I'll have
He's
to.
like a white Rey Mysterio. Like that man can
Really?
fly. Yeah, he can
Okay,
fly.
bet then that sounds good to me. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the name Sicken as well.
Maybe? I'm not too sure.
He's typically in Maryland, but he also goes to Pennsylvania and New Jersey as well. But yeah, I'd like to step in the ring with him at some point. Um, but yeah.
So before we go, if my fans want to follow you on social media or like pick up anything of yours, where can they get merch and how can they find you?
All right, so I have merch at Bonfire. Just look up DBW, and it should come up, or just look up H Christian, VTW, DBW or VTW. You'll find it on either one of those pages at bonfire.com. And then at social media, you can find me at Facebook on Kate Phillips, and then you can find me on Instagram at ace_Christian1.
Awesome. Ace Christian, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast and help me with the middle of Tri-State Wrestling Month and also help me with my 4-year anniversary of Dudes at Ringside podcast. With this whole year, it's my anniversary of the pod. It's been a long run so far with the 4 years, and I'm gonna keep it pumping going for as long as I can. Before we go, if there was any kids that are watching this podcast and they want to get into the business like you did, what kind of advice would you have for them?
If not only you're a kid, but if you're just a person in general that wants to join the business, my best advice is you gotta want it. Like I preach that so much. Like you can't just go in and just think it's gonna happen. Like you gotta work for it, and you gotta see if you truly want it, because you can't just go in like blindly and thinking you might want this, but like maybe after you take your first bump, or you run your first rope, or you wrestle your first match, this might not be for you, and that's okay if that's not for you. But as long as you are happy with what you were doing, not only like if you want to wrestle or if you're pursuing something else, be happy with what you were doing.
Awesome. Ace, thank you again. I'm Joe Panther the Third. Your turn.
Oh, I'm Ace Christian, the Blaze Ace Christian.
And we will catch you in the next one.